Good morning. Today we've gathered here to celebrate and remember and commemorate two great stalwarts of Indian art. One is, of course, the legendary S.H. Raza, Indian modern master, one of the founder members of the Progressive Artist Group. And the second is the artist K G Subramanyan, who is not only an artist but also has been a mentor for generations of Indian artists who've come out from Faculty of Arts, Baroda, as well as Shanti Vihar. K G Subramanyan is important for two very good reasons. One, he's an artist who pulled out from Shantiniketan, taught at Baroda, went to London, came back and mixed all these different trends and put together a style which is gestural animation. It's a new style in his own right. Second, he, like I said, was mentor. He was a teacher at the Faculty of Arts, Baroda. He was an ex-student of Shantiniketan. So he has kept both these traditions alive and tried to influence, tried to help artists, Indian artists who came out from these two different schools, totally different in style, but he being the connector between these two. Most people who visited Shantiniketan would know Subramanyam because of this particular building, the Kala Bhavan. He has done what you call as a mural style. He's done the entire school up in his own style. He's another artist who's interesting because he's gone through almost all the mediums that one could explore in the field of art and craft. Now, what is interesting about him, apart from these 2 points that I mentioned, is that he has ventured into the field of art as well as the craft. He was the deputy director of the handloom sector in Bombay. He studied mural style, he studied craft, he studied textile in terms of exploring with craftsmen. So these things have been incorporated in his style. Now, as you can see, not only is he well versed in oil on canvas, he's also really good at terracotta relief. He's of course done the mural at Ravindra Bhavan. He is also known for watercolor, which is tempera and watercolor is something he discovered in Shantiniketan. Oil he discovered when he came to Baroda and his travel to London for a year. Lithograph, of course, he is a printmaker. He studied printmaking in London. And then you have, of course, terracotta relief, mural style work. He's worked on textile. He's worked on woven sculpture. He's worked on soft sculpture, what they call it. All this he kind of put together. That is his body of work. So his body of work is like Rasab is not on acrylic, on canvas, or oil on board, on watercolor. It is so big, so diverse, and that makes him an excellent mentor for any student of Indian art who wants to venture into any of these disciplines. As you can see, these are the different fields or domains that he explored while he was alive. He had paintings, of course. You had terracotta relief, reverse painting on glass and acrylic, very famous. Lithographs and etching, something he studied in London as well as in Shantiniketan. Drawing, again, something from Shantiniketan. Children's books. So he's written books, he's done illustrations for children's books. He has designed toys, wooden toys and other toys. He has, of course, got into mural. You will see in the course of the presentation that you have a very famous mural that he's done. Textiles. When he was working in the handloom sector in Bombay, he got back to the old style of painting on textile. So you have kalamkari that he discovered. He discovered so many different ways, block printing. So he was looking at all these different techniques in textile. And then, of course, sculpture. Now that is something he picked up, of course, from his mentors, Ramkinkar Bej, and of course sculpture, as in soft sculpture, that he picked up with woven sculpture. His life. He is from Kerala. He belonged to a Brahmin Hindu community in a district known as Palagat, which is essentially a district full of temples, full of Hindu festivals. So his childhood memories are very important because, as we had already discussed, even with Raza, childhood memories are the most strong memories that you have when you grow up. So you have music, Carnatic music. He is very well versed. He was very well versed with Carnatic music, mythology from the south, folklore, and then he shifted from Palagat to a small little place in the coast area of Kerala known as Mahe, which was a French colony, and you see the influence of French literature as well. So by the time he got out of Kerala to move to Chennai for his graduation, he already was well versed with literature, English, French, and Malayalam. He was already well versed with Carnatic music, and his childhood memories are visuals and images of ancient South Indian temples. So these are some of the temples that are there in Palakkad. These are the temples, old temples, ancient temples with antique sculptures, old traditions of sculpture making. And the ceremonies he's seen are these beautiful images of, there is this temple, it's a Shiva temple, and annually there is a temple chariot festival that takes place. So in this, people actually pull the design and they construct the entire chariot and they pull it with ropes. So it's not as if you use animals or anything, it's people who pull the chariot through the entire procession. Mahe is more French in its appeal, in its environment, what you imbibe out of it, and you have French style architecture, you have churches, you have the seacoast. So look at the visuals that he has. It's not a visual which is strongly rooted in Hindu tradition, it is rooted in what we call as Indian culture. Now, Indian culture is one of the major themes in any kind of discourse that he does. He talks about how it is important to, you have to understand what is the age or the period that he lived in. He was born in 1924, so he's like 2 years younger to Raza Sahib, right? So he's also seen the Quit India movement. Now, interesting part, before the Quit India movement, which was in 1942, you see that he has read this book by Ananda Kumaraswamy. Now, he is a great art critic, a cultural historian. He, in fact, was one of the first, Ananda Kumaraswamy was one of the first writers who brought to the Western world the beauty and the relevance of Indian antiques. And he explained Indian culture to them. So that is the first, that is how important Ananda Kumaraswamy was. And there was this book that he wrote, which was called as Art and Swadeshi. I think, Art and Swadeshi, in which he talks about how it is important to revive Indian culture. Now, what is interesting here is that this same concept of revival of Indian culture has been discussed in Bengal, in Shanti Vihar. So you understand why Subramanyan would be actually interested in going to that place. He, of course, graduated from Presidency College in Economics. Now, there itself, he got involved with the Quit India movement, like all the youth of that era. And he was imprisoned, he was released. Then he went to Shantiniketan in 1944. He was there for 3 years. In those 3 years, the environment that is there in Shantiniketan at that point, you have mentors like Nandlal Bose, you have Ram Kinkar Bed, and you have Vinod Bihari Mukherjee there, present. These are major artists from the Bengal school. And they were the ones who students used to discuss things with. It wasn't a teacher-student kind of environment where the teacher taught and the student, just wrote down notes. It was actually very important, strong, deep conversations, debates, and arguments. Oh, what art should be, what Indian art should be, what is Indian nationalism, and topics such importance, so crucial to what has now come out to be as Indian art. So that's Kala Bhavan. Like I said, that's done by Subramaniam. That is Ram Kinkar Bed's sculpture. That is how it looks, the institute where they all stayed and studied. And they used to have these discussions. This is how informal the education was. This is totally in contrast to, say, the Madras School of Art, or say JJ School of Art, or Nagpur School of Art, where it was more academic. So you had a teacher who taught and the student who wrote or learned. Here it was teacher sat in the middle and they used to have long discussions. So that is why Subramaniam is one of those professors as well in Faculty of Arts, Baroda, who kind of propagates this idea of students having an important say in a classroom discussion. So that makes him an excellent professor, and hence he has major influence over Indian contemporary artists, the young ones that we have. His mentors, Bengal masters, all of them. And in fact, while he was there for 3 years, his major works were either in watercolor or tempera. There are only two mediums he explored. And he also explored calligraphy. So you have, so in Shantiniketan, he learned all these three mediums. But in 1944, 1945, he's already exposed not only to the Bengal school or the Bengal style of painting, which is more wash technique, and you have Japanese influence. He also came to discover Matisse and Persian miniature. He came to discover Japanese, of course, from Shantiniketan itself, Kalighat Pat because he's in West Bengal, glass paintings. And what he learnt out of them was, let's not stick, what he thought. He did not stick to one medium. He learned what was the thought behind these different styles, and he imbibed them, he kind of put them together into his style. Now, when he left Kala Bhavan, which is interesting, he started oil painting. He left Kala Bhavan in 1948. And you see that in 1949 is when the first oil painting of the artist is said to be. And it was more about expressionism. He is now moving away from the Bengal style and discovering these new movements that were there towards, look at the region, you have Bengal and then he's come to Baroda. He's already starting to teach in Baroda in 1951. So he's moved location. With the location, you have Bombay next to Baroda. You have, Bombay school happening in one space. And then you have these influences of these European styles that have started coming into India. And he hence started exploring new mediums. So oil, he did. He also started looking at expressionism. And then he moved, which was interesting, into cubism. He discovered cubism. Now his cubism is very different from what we understand as cubism. For us, the European definition of cubism is perspective and how it's about light and how it's become geometrical form. For him, cubism is just a way of painting. He did not look at it as he's trying to follow a style or he's trying to emulate or he's trying to pull out an influence from the European school. He looked at it the way he looked at Kalighat Pat, the way he looked at other Indian traditions, miniature style, and he, as usual, picked up traits from them and used them. Now, what is important about this work, Woman with Lamp 2, this was actually part of an exhibition that happened before he left for London in 1955, which was done by Delhi Shilpa Chakra. That, to me, is essentially cubist in its formation. Can you see all the lines, jagular lines, they're either triangles, circles, lines, geometrical forms. It has almost lost its fluidity in style. But how does he explain this painting? If you somebody asked him about this painting and he says, oh, cubism is just an exploration of issues, as in exploration of a form or a style, but it's more like a language. It is not, well, I want to follow a style. And hence, he saw cubism as offering a linguistic perspective on representation. Now that's a long, difficult line to understand. What it means is, he used it as a tool. He did not say, I'm going to draw something in cubism. He said, okay, this form can be represented in this way. In London, he's already trained now in watercolor, tempera, oil. He knows his sculpture. He's from Shantiniketan. In London, he decided to study printmaking. Now, when he studied printmaking, he came in contact with a lot of people from ceramics and pottery. Now from there, he actually started kind of having an interest in craft tradition. As you can see, in British museums, he encountered also the works of Ben Nicholson. Now Ben Nicholson is a British artist who does abstract. Of course, he was influenced by Cubism and other European movements. As you can see, that is Ben Nicholson and this is K G Subramanyan. That is 1922 and this is 1964. 1964, he's back in India. When he's back in India, he's still influenced by not exactly Cubism, but abstract. Now, what has happened in his style, as you will see after a couple of paintings, is that there is a loss of lines. Lines are not drawn with a black brush anymore. It's actually with the color with which he kind of paints inside of a form. So, like I said, he came back to India in 1956 with a keen interest in crafts. Crafts and how to paint images, like how to depict images was his interest for the next 3 years, where he was doing nothing but still life paintings like these. So 60s, he's known for this. In 1958, he came to become the deputy director of the Handloom Board in Mumbai. And that's where he came in very close contact with craftsmen and textile. So as he discovered a medium, he changed his style. And in his style, I mean how to work what his vision is onto a particular medium. So now he's moved to textile and woven sculpture. So he's using knitting, he's using different ways of showing as a sculptural installation, if you call it. He comes back, he joins Faculty of Arts, Baroda as a professor, and that's where he did what we call as one of his greatest works. It's a mural, and it's 80 feet long, 9 feet high mural in Rabindralaya. That is the work. It's called King of the Dark Chambers. It's one of the part. This is from Asia Art Archives, the images. 70s, after the mural, he came back to painting again. And in painting, he started exploring the reverse style of painting on glass or acrylic. His style by this time has lost its line. He started using colors a lot. His brushes become a lot more freer. And hence, it's like gestural animation, the movement in his work. It's flowy. It is not the still life that you see here. No longer. It becomes something that looks like this. And what has happened in all these years is that he has, like I said, one of his favorite topics is culture. Now, when you talk about culture, culture always has different perspectives. You cannot think of it only by your definition. So his work, something like this, which is called pastoral, he actually had these windows. It's like different perspectives of the same view, same vision. And this work, incidentally, is also it went for the highest bid price for a Subramanyan work for 1.2 crores in a 2014 Saffron Art sale, which makes him another collectible, according to me, because in the first K G Subramanyan to be put in an auction was in 2000, and it sold for some 35,000 rupees. But by 2014, which is in 14 years, his prices have increased to this, which is 1.2 CR at an auction. So that's my presentation on Subramanyan. What is interesting also is because he was interested in craft, he was interested in sculpture, he was interested in art, he never completely left a medium. So you will see, for example, a watercolor. Now, according to our chronological study, watercolor should have been done in 1940s, right? Because he was in Shanti Vihar. That didn't happen because he came back to his medium. Look at this, watercolor, 1999. He's still doing it. He never completely left a medium. His mediums actually became a way for him to express. He will see which is the best medium for me to express, and he would use it. He did not stick to one. He did not identify himself with one medium. So you would have terracotta plates done in 2008. Now terracotta should have been done in 1960s because that's when he was with handloom board, right? No. Oil on canvas he discovered in 1951, but in 2000 as well he's doing it. So he is a master of almost all the mediums that existed in art and craft. So that makes him a very important, he plays a seminal role in Indian art, modern as well as contemporary, because he did not stick to a medium. Thank you.